Yeah. Subscribe to the channel. Katerina was lucky. She came to the city of Zgulabanka and immediately found a place to live, a job, and a fiancé. And this despite the fact that she had a 3-year-old son. She gave birth to Katia from a guy from her hometown, who, right in the middle of the novel, went to the army and did not want to return home after her. I wrote to her, "I wish you find a normal man, and I have nothing to do in the village." Katia cried for 2 weeks, then calmed down. Her family in the house she grew up without parents now helped her raise a son. At least he did all the man's work in the house, and sometimes even cooked food. The water was constantly heated in the big kettle. So Katia, although she washed it by hand, was glad that she didn't have to chop wood and heat the stove herself. When Grandpa got sick and fell ill, it became hard. In the morning you need to run to the barn, pick firewood, melt the stove, cook breakfast. The chopped wood was finished, and now, before the stove was set on fire, they had to be poked with an axe. Oh, it's good that there are chopped wood. And when they are gone, what can we do? Katerina was worried. In the middle of spring, Grandpa died. Then Katia realized that she could not stand the life of a village without help from strangers, and decided to go to the city. She took out a huge amount of money from the local government, which her grandfather had deposited from his pension, and went on to a new life. In the city, she immediately saw an ad for a part-time rental of half of the house. When Katia came to see what kind of conditions it was, it turned out that the house had central heating, water, sewage, light, not just gas and hot water. Katia, such conditions seemed heavenly. So she immediately paid the rent for 3 months in advance. She found a job nearby, a nanny in a kindergarten. In the same kindergarten, she had a son. They took him without a queue as a child employee. At the same time, she solved the issue of food. They were always full in the kindergarten. Katerina felt, one might say, used to be happy with the little things. She even thought that she didn't deserve the luck that fell on her head. Vanechka grew up. Thanks to Sadik, he learned to speak correctly, to recite poems, sing, and dance. In the evening, having dinner with sweet cottage cheese or porridge and quick cooking, they lay down on a large sofa and read fairy tales. However, Mom often fell asleep before her son, but he was already used to it. As soon as she hears that her mother is slightly whining, she will carefully take a book from her hand and read it herself, pointing fingers at the letters and telling a fairy tale. Once a fire broke out in the neighboring house. Katia and Vanya woke up from the siren and saw a burning house in the window. At that moment, someone knocked on their door. Katerina, putting on her dress, opened the door. "Citizen, do you live here alone?" he asked, saying hello to a handsome tall man in AM.CHS uniform. "No, we rent a place for our son. Get dressed quickly, take the necessary documents, and go outside. The fire can spread to your house." Katia was nervous. Vanya, hearing what the uncle said, jumped out of bed and started putting on pants, shoes, and a jacket himself. When everything was ready, they went outside, where the crowd had already gathered. The firefighters worked around the burning house, trying to extinguish the fire with a stream of water. But the gusts of wind scattered sparks, one way or another, every time forcing the residents to shout out loud. Then again, the very tall man appeared. Obviously, the head of the guard. "Citizens, please step back." Even further, he commanded, "Don't interfere." He walked past the Kaditsu and seeing them, he took a step back. "Have you already come out? Well done, you got together quickly." He praised and slapped Vanya on the shoulder. "Well, are you afraid of fires when you grow up?" Vanya looked at the beautiful shape and nodded. "I will." The man laughed. "Just look, we have such a job that, like a fire, even if you quit." And Katia blinked. She pressed Vanya to herself. Katerina was terribly afraid of fires. When houses were burning in the village, it always shut its ears. Just don't hear the cipher burst with a terrible crack. How the torches are. Fortunately, the burning did not happen at their house. The walls of the old neighbor's building, completely burned out from the inside, were laid out as in a card house, leaving in the middle a blackened Russian stove with a long pipe. The neighbor said that no one lived in this house, but at night some suspicious persons gathered. They could have set a fire if they could not use the stove. People started to disperse, and Katia and Vanya stood still, unable to take their eyes off the fire, whose appearance was both frightening and attractive. Finally, when fire engines started passing by, they turned aside. From the window of the last car, the same boss looked out. "Why don't you go home? It's cold." Yes, yes. Thank you, we're already going," Katia answered, and took her son to the house. In the morning, they knocked on the door in Svetlovka again. Katerina was already going to go to work, so they stood at the door with you. Representatives of the police, the neighbor, and yesterday's fire department, and asked Katerina to sign the act as a warning. As it turned out, the Ministry of Emergency Situations who came to check the fire again. That's why they called the police. Katia apologized, but refused to participate in the signing, and was late for work. "Are you far away?" asked the head of the guard. "I'll give you a lift." Katia realized that it was better to sign faster than argue with the representatives of the authorities. After the signing, Katia went out on the sidewalk, and they went to the side of the garden with you. Then a light car caught up with them. "Well, Mom, I promised to give you a lift." "Boy, come on, jump," the man shouted, opening the front door. Svetlova sat down in the car. Nikolai was in the fire station. Ekaterina, Vanya, and Svetlova at the same time said, "I see you are a friendly family." Nikolai smiled. "How long have you been in our city?" "Almost 6 months," Katerina answered. "We are very lucky here with housing and work. Right, Vanyusha?" "Yes," he answered. "Uncle, why did you come by the fire truck today?" "Because I am the boss." Nikolai smiled again. "The fire engines went to extinguish another fire, and I'm here for another reason. I'll change and go home." "That's good. Although you will rest after such crazy days," said Katia. "It happens and worse." "Seriously," said Kolya, and slowed down. "Here?" "Yes, yes. Thank you very much. Goodbye." They waved to Uncle Kolya, and he happily waved at the signals and went on. At work, Katia was everywhere, no, and she remembered Nikolai. Tall, beautiful, cheerful. Surely, women would stick to him. He has no ring on his finger, but that doesn't mean he's not married. Many men don't wear rings, but for the married man, he's somehow too communicative. Although his work is like that, thoughts changed with the speed of light, until Katia finally said to herself, "Stop. You'll fall in love again." But it was late. The weekends were, as always, unnoticed. Katerina was doing the cleaning, washing, ironing, cooking, and Vanka was cleaning the tracks in the yard from the first snow. He was picking his toy with a sledgehammer, loading it into a large plastic dump, which remained in the yard from the previous residence, and carried it to the end of the track under the fence. Katia looked out the window so that nothing would happen to her son. At some point, she heard her son lying by the stove. What happened there? She got scared and ran out into the yard. In the middle of the road was Nikolai, and threw Vanya up. He was lying, but he was screaming more, so he flew up over Nikolai's head again and again, so that Kolya wouldn't notice how red she was. "Happy Sunday to you," he said. "Didn't you wait?" "No, we didn't wait," the baby honestly replied. "And we shouldn't have said goodbye. So I came to this date," Kolya joked. "There's an offer. Go to one place outside the city. There's a great snowy hill. Ride as much as you can." Vanya was delighted. Katia invited Kolya to, and asked her to wait a little while she would get better. Then they got the hives out of the chula, also from the previous owners, and went to ride. A month later, Kolya and Katia got engaged. Nikolai promised to adopt Vanya in due time, but Katia decided not to take the name of her husband yet. They moved to Nikolai's big apartment, where he lived with his mother, and now they drove to the kindergarten. At first, the mother-in-law was cautious about her daughter-in-law, but then, seeing her in decency and simplicity, she became attached to her like a daughter. And to you, a well-mannered child, it was simply impossible not to fall in love. Catherine once again thanked fate for the happiness she had given her, and did not even suspect how much happiness she had been given. Previously, such a cheerful person suddenly began to shut himself in, for no reason to stay at work, often to break out of the house on weekends. Katia knew that duty would make him ready for any surprises, but when he went to the challenge on his own birthday, her suspicions began to shrink. Svykrov at this time for some reason got sick and spent most of the day in bed. Before work, Katerina helped her to wash, dress, comb her hair, feed her breakfast. After work, everything was repeated in reverse order. To feed, help to wash, change clothes, and go to bed. Kolya first helped his wife to take care of his mother, but then he began to more often refer to the dumps at work and leave exactly when Katya needed his manpower. For example, to move her mother to the bathhouse or to put her on the chair. With time, Catherine, by the will of Nicholas, had to resign from work to take care of her lying-down sister-in-law. Katya suffered, but never complained, never reproached her husband. She believed that if she received the gift of fate, then she should endure her blow. When her sister-in-law died, Kolya admitted that he fell in love with another woman, a new employee, who came to work in their fire department as a dispatcher. Their relationship went very far. The dispatcher was waiting for Nikolai the child, so Svetlov needed to free the premises. Katya was, as if to decide, so it will be. The court, on the eviction of the marriage, decided that Katerina does not even have the right to part of Nikolai's apartment because she was not together with our property, and most importantly, Svetlova was not registered in it. If this question never arose, and Katya never thought about it, now she was in a hurry to find a job. Another nanny and a home have already been taken to the same place, but this time, good luck turned away from her. The last drop of patience was the move of and they hurried to the bus station with Vanya. The former husband tried to give her some money for the farewell, but she suddenly pulled her hand. "Well, where are we going?" the son asked. "To the Hare village. At least no one will drive us out of there." "And it's dark in the village?" Vanya asked. He thought that the village was a large cluster of trees, a thick and droughty forest. "Yes, it's dark." Katya thought for a minute. "And it's too late. But it's okay. We'll make it to the last bus." She calmed herself down. There were many people at the bus station. On Fridays, many students were going from the city to the village. Some went by boat, some went fishing with a nightclub. Katya and Vanya were waiting for the bus to come. As the cool spring rain began. Spring again, water again. "We're going somewhere." Katie turned her head. Suddenly a girl with a big wooden box came up to them. "Annie, buy a box. There is no money for bread," she snored. Katie looked at the girl's face, and her heart was burning. "Oh, poor child and shameless. How much do you want for the box?" she asked. "Rubles." As if frightened by this huge number, Katya shook her head. The box was heavy, sharp, and it was clear that it was not cheap. She stretched the girls and took the box. The shameless girl jumped up, whistled, putting her dirty fingers in her mouth, and the older guys ran to her right away. She waved at them with a ruble piece of paper, and when she had time to hide the others, and the company, loudly making noise, moved to the train station. "Mom, let me see," Vanya asked, and Katya gave him the box in his hand. The son began to draw with his finger on a smooth carved pattern covered with a carpenter's varnish. He ran the tires, looked inside. "There's nothing there," said Mom. "Well, then we'll put something there ourselves," said she. Suddenly Vanya whispered. His little finger stuck in a small hole in the side of the box. Katya tried to pull out her finger, but it wasn't there. He puffed up. She led Vanya under the lantern and began to look into the hole, which formed a pattern of grape grits, but not convex, but pressed. In the depths of the narrowest hole, she noticed the screw slot, and saw that a joint was passing through the hole in which the finger of the bath was stuck. She pulled out a nail file from her bag, turned the screw, and the bottom of the box began to separate. The finger of the son immediately appeared free, and Katie, who had guessed that there was another screw on the other side, turned it too. The bottom of the box hardly fell to the ground, and some papers were poured from under it. These were the preservation certificates issued into the... So it was impossible to ask where they got the box. Take it to the police. They will be tortured with questions, examinations, and other bureaucracy. Maybe we should take the risk? Katya sat down and asked her son, "Well, what are we going to do, Vanya? Let's go to the village or stay here." "I don't want to go to the village," the boy answered confidently. It was really scary for him to be in the thick forest at night. "Well, then," Katya looked at the taxi drivers waiting for the arrival of the international bus. "Then, at the first time we go to the hotel." "What is a hotel? They give out hotels there?" asked Vanya. No, son, we will live there as guests, and then we will buy hotels ourselves. Okay, I agree. Katia rang, kissed Vanya, took her things, and waved to one of the taxi drivers. And after 3 years, looking at the sun and 2 daughters of the weather, I thought that then fate itself waved its hand. After all, Sasha, the same taxi driver who came to her, made her truly happy. Thank you for watching to the end. If you like the story, please support me with the thumb up button. All the best!